very often when we take a look at bug out bags, get home bags, EDC bags, where people are kind of getting into the survivalist mentality, we take it from the perspective of someone who maybe was in the military and has some perspectives from being in a war zone, or maybe they do some backpacking or outdoors types of activities, and they come into the perspectives of what would I need for those circumstances. I come at it from a very different perspective. I'm in the unenviable position of having lived through several disasters, riot, looting type of situations in my lifetime, and some of the things that I'm going to show you, you probably would not have thought you would need to put in a bug out bag or a get home bag. The setup that we're going to be talking about for me today is a get home bag. Like if I have to pack up from work or from wherever I'm at and take myself to my home. And that's going to be mostly in an urban type of environment, but could flex into some more rural stuff if it was absolutely necessary, given the distance that I now live from work. Back when I lived a mile from work, it really didn't matter the stuff that I kept in this bag. All I kept was a pair of boots and an extra pair of socks in my car, which is still there, along with all of the other stuff to keep cars running if your car breaks down. That stuff's still there. The perspective that I come at it from now is as a police officer for the last 18 years in the area of Chicago. Now here we have had 2 blizzards in that time. We've had at least 1 incidence of riots and looting, at least that I was involved with. We've had the power shut off for close to a week, a couple of different times. The blizzards were to the point where we couldn't even drive ambulances down the street. We were plowing roads just to get ambulances to people type of circumstances. And we've had circumstances where the area that I work in is flooded. Like literally hip to chest deep flooded. You've got nothing at that point. Everything that you have is soaked. And then on top of that, I come up from a background of doing backpacking and camping and hiking and all of that stuff. What I don't come at it from, and I will freely admit to you I don't come at it from, is from a military context, which is where most of these bag videos come from. And so the difference you're going to see between the stuff that I talk about in this video and the stuff that you're going to see from those perspectives is that a lot of the things that get flexed into in those videos I have found aren't really necessary in all of the emergencies that I've ever found myself in when I'm not working as a cop on the street. And if you're talking about getting home or bugging out, that's very different from the job that I do. There's some overlap in the things that you might need and some of the ways that I look at it, but I'm not going to use the same equipment that I would at work in order to try to get home, unless that's the only equipment that I had or there were very special circumstances about the emergency that I was in at that time. As such, the things that you normally see in these types of videos aren't going to be in this one. Specifically, extra guns and ammunition. I have guns and ammunition. I carry a gun all the time, every day. If I'm at work and trying to get home, I've got much better guns than the type of stuff that I'm going to put in a bag and leave there, hoping that maybe one day, in some crazy circumstance, I'm going to need more than the J-frame revolver that I carry when I'm off duty. And if that circumstance did come up, if the crazy zombie apocalypse, riot to end all riots, World War III type of thing kicks off, or Civil War Part 2 kicks off, these aren't going to help me anyway. And I have much better equipment for that I'm going to be straight up stealing from work and making my way into the countryside with. So I don't worry about any of that. These types of things, totally unnecessary. Another one that you see a lot of people put into these videos is extra ammunition. Realistically, any circumstance that you find yourself in that requires more than 4 or 5 shots, you've already kind of blown your load on the whole circumstance. And if I'm in one of those situations again, I'm in a circumstance where I'm going to have my equipment from work. So this type of stuff, it's not really going to be super helpful. My 5 shots are going to get me through about 99.999999999% of all the stuff that could possibly happen in the Chicagoland area with me leaving a circumstance, which is really all this is for, is getting me home. I carry a knife, and while I would love to have more of them in some circumstances, we'll talk about that in a moment, I don't need another fixed blade one. I haven't found fixed blade knives to be particularly useful for most things because, honestly, all of my cars have an axe in them. And if you have an axe, if you're in a circumstance where you're going to need something to do some really heavy cutting, an axe is far better than a fixed blade knife. If we're in a circumstance, folks, where we need a gas mask, things have gotten real to the point where you're going to die. No one wants to talk about this, but the reality is, if you need one of these, you're already dead. if you're trying to make it home. This isn't going to buy you enough time to get home in a car for most people, let alone if you're out hiking. You're thinking you're going to hike home in wearing this. This is about 30 minutes of life, and then you're done. Best case scenario, absolute best, 30 minutes with these. And most of them, they don't have cartridges for the type of threats that are going to kill you anyway. Most of them are CSOC P100 type cartridges. The same as this. This is not, it's not super helpful for the circumstances that we're going to be talking about. Being able to clean guns, if the gun gets so dirty that it stops working in your survivalist or bug out situation or your get home bag, it's gone way off the rails. We're not going to clean it. We'll clean it when we get home. The gun will survive. Gun is not fragile. If your gun is fragile, you've got bigger problems. Find a better gun. Stop buying garbage. Cordage is one of those where I'm going to take umbrage with a lot of the community, both in backpacking and camping and survivalists and military and all of that. This bolt of paracord I've cut about 12 feet off of for projects over the years, and the rest of it is still here because I don't find this particularly useful for much of anything in my day-to-day life or when camping. My things are properly maintained, so I wouldn't have no reason to use dark green paracord to maintain any of it, because dark green is not an aesthetic that I'm going for when I'm camping. Normally it's bright colors because I want to be able to find my stuff. I don't replace the lines on my tent with dark green paracord because then you're just going to trip over it more. Pry tools, I guess, could be useful, but realistically out in the world, I don't have a real hard time finding pry tools or impact tools in my average alley in the area that I work. So I can find a metal bar or a screwdriver broken somewhere. I don't need to carry this type of thing around, and I don't need this type of stuff. It's not really going to be useful. People think that shelter means buying a shelter, having some sort of shelter and being able to conceal that shelter. Realistically, you're not going to do that. If it's an actual survival situation, we're not building a shelter and living in it, especially if it's a get-home bag. We're just trying to get home. And a poncho is going to do that job most of the time. In fact, a contractor cleanup bag is going to be able to do that most of the time, and that's part of where I'm coming from here. And finally, with the camouflage cool guy backpacks, this is shenanigans. This is shenanigans. We're not carrying this around. If we do, we're just making ourselves a target, especially this type of thing. I mean, realistically, the guy with the camouflage backpack, you're going to be a meme. Another thing that you're not going to see is ham radios. I don't understand why everybody that makes a get-home bag, bug-out bag, whatever, tries to convince everyone that their Baofeng is going to keep them alive. There's no one at the other end of the radio. Even at work, when the power goes out and it dies hard enough, all the repeater towers go down, and we have no way to communicate with each other over the radios. The radios go out because all the repeaters are down, and now we're trying to talk on simplex. And the people who are too far away from me can't even hear what I'm saying because I'm using it off of the transmission power of my portable radio. So now I have to go into a car and get on a bigger radio in the car, a more powerful transmitter, to try to tell them on direct to come closer to the station to talk on direct, so that our little simplex channel, so that way we can dispatch using the radio and still have some semblance of patrol going on. Why would you think, unless you already have some massive network set up, that you're going to get somebody on a ham radio who's actually going to be able to help you? Anybody you can reach with that little portable handheld ham radio, unless they're in your group and you're talking directly to them, is probably in the same circumstance that you're in. They're not in a circumstance to help you, and they're probably not going to want to help you. And I hate to break it to everybody, but law enforcement is not monitoring the ham channels to see if you need an ambulance. Maybe we should, but we don't. Oh, and none of the stupid stuff that people put in that it's only applicable to their profession. This stuff, it's pointless. We're not going to use any of that. Here's what we're going to use. We're going to use a diaper bag, okay? We're going to use a diaper bag because you put this on. It's meant to carry heavy loads. It's got real straps, and it looks like nothing. You look like a dad going to the zoo. And if somebody sees you hiking down the road with this, you definitely don't look like any type of threat. And if you are hiking down the road with it, it's got a reflective stripe and some orange stuff on the back of it, which is going to make it a lot easier for you to not get hit by a car. And number one rule of of getting home is not getting hit by a car. So let's take a look at this bag. This isn't something that anybody sent me. It's just a bag that we used to use as a diaper bag when my kids were little, and I now use as the bag in the back of my wife's car. I have a very similar one that I transfer between other cars and my car for home. This thing's got reflective striping on the outside. It's got a logo that's not tactical in any way, shape, or form because it's not a tactical bag. And it's got some coloration on it, which it makes it not just a black bag. On the outside of this, I've still got baby wipes. These are incredibly helpful. And on top of this being my bug out or get home bag, it's also just the bag that sits in the back of the car with all the extra stuff in it. And if I was in a situation where I was trying to get home, being able to clean things could be really, really helpful. So that stays in there. You're going to notice that throughout this, it's a matter of how realistic we can be about the problems. You ever try to find something in a bag and it's a black bag and it's dark out and it's nighttime and you don't have a flashlight because the flashlight's in the bag, or your flashlight died and your flashlight's in the bag? I got this little, what is this, Life Gear thing that I found at some dollar store, and it's just a little twist-on light, and it allows me to look inside the bag, which is not black on the inside. I found a bag that's gray lining on the inside. Crazy! Look at that. Just a little light. It makes all the difference in the world, being able to find things inside of your bag. On the very outside of this, I've got all of the things that I would very immediately need if I found that I was on the side of the road with the car broke down and the kids and the wife or, one of my buddies in the car. The first thing, and the thing I don't ever see in any of these bug out bag videos, is an extra backpack. I have 2 entirely extra backpacks. Are these great backpacks? No, they're not great backpacks. Just these little cinch bag type of backpacks. But if it's me and my 2 kids, or me and my oldest son and my wife, I now have a way of carrying all sorts of more stuff because we got a bunch of stuff that stays in the car. So now I've got a way to put the kids' electronics in a bag if it's just, hey, the car broke down and we need to get to the next gas station. Put the electronics in the bag, put their books in the bag or whatever. If we've got extra water that we need to put, I can put them into these backpacks, hand them off to the kids and the wife and be like, all right, now we can all get out of here. And I've got a whole nother backpack, but I can carry extra stuff. And carrying extra stuff is probably going to be of major importance in most of the circumstances where you're going to try to get home. In here is also 2 fairly cheap AA flashlights. This one has a lithium-ion battery in it, and I've got a bunch of extra lithium-ion batteries still in the packages in here. These are great because they don't corrode. They last 10 years. And I've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 of them, and one in one of the lights. So that'll get me through at least several days of all of my nighttime lighting needs. And I've got 2 brand new sharp pocket knives, things that I've picked up for free over the years. These are, what are they, Stack Gear something or another. Doesn't really matter. Just 2 decent sized sharp pocket knives. They don't look like anything. So that I have extra stuff for whoever's in the car with me. Because very often, people are not prepared. Just because you carry a knife and a multi-tool around doesn't mean that your son and your wife and your other kid are going to carry a knife and a pocket and a multi-tool around. I got a couple of multi-tools. They're nothing special. This is, a Leatherman, Kick, whatever. It's something to be able to hand off to somebody. And if you're in a car with 2 or 3 other guys, most guys, if you hand them a multi-tool, a flashlight, and a knife, they're going to be able to get through a whole lot more circumstances than they could with their bare hands and ingenuity. And that's just the reality of it. As far as being able to light fires, a lot of people carry ferrocerium rods around. They put ferrocerium rods in backpacks. I don't put a ferrocerium rod in my backpack. One, because if you're in a situation like this where you're trying to get home and you're down to making fire, or let's say you're stuck in a bad storm, you're stuck in a thunderstorm and you're trying to make a fire somewhere, right? Like, you could use a ferrocerium rod. In fact, I keep one on my keychain and have ever since I was a little kid in Scouts, or you could use a lighter. Right? And then for people who say, oh, it's not waterproof. Oh, I'll tell you, I got the instantaneous Lights All lighter here. I always keep flares in my car, on top of flares being really, really good for starting fires. They're also great for their intended purpose of people not hitting your car if you're broke down on the side of the road. But I always keep an extra in the Ziploc bag, in the backpack, so that way I always know that if I really, really need a fire, I have a flare. This has actually been the thing that's come in handy out of everything that's in this bag more often than not. I probably a couple times a year end up pulling a flare out because we do a lot of stuff outdoors, and if you get in a circumstance where you've got a bunch of people and you're intending cooking food over the fire and you can't get the fire lit, guess what? Psh, fire lit, no matter what. You got wood, it's soaking wet, it's been raining for 3 days, that fire is getting lit. If you put a flare down on the ground and then throw logs on top of it, that's happening. So this is all the simple stuff that's on the outside. It's the things that, hey, somebody's knife broke, hey, we're camping, we need another flashlight, the flashlight's in here. Hey, your car breaks down on the side of the road and you need to be able to see what you're doing to fix it. Flashlight, fantastic stuff. Here I've got a bunch of med because in a circumstance where we find ourselves, the whole world has gone off the rails, the one thing that we know we are definitely going to need, we're going to need not just first aid, but we might need trauma care. So I've got a trauma bag full of all sorts of trauma-y stuff in it. It's a rip-off pouch, so I could Velcro this to something if I wanted to, but I don't need to. It's just a trauma kit. And then I've got a first aid kit that I have spiced up with some other trauma stuff and some cutting equipment and things like that for our more advanced things that we might run into. Haven't had to use a whole lot of it in the past, at least when I'm not at work. I have used tourniquets and such like that at work, but for home it's nice to have two things set up where we've got a tourniquet in this, a tourniquet in that, a pressure dressing in this, a pressure dressing in that. So the things that we could most likely happen to have, if we had a situation where there's a lot of people injured, I've got double the equipment, and also I can hand one off to my son, and I can use the other one. And now that he's made it along pretty far in Scouts, he knows how to use most of the stuff now too. My actual poncho that I keep in here is bright blue, because it, again, helps me from getting hit by cars going down the side of the road, but also the bright blue poncho is easy for people to see if they're trying to find me. So in a circumstance where I got lost somewhere, bright blue poncho. I've got an auxiliary poncho because the kids never remember, and I also have a whole roll of contractor cleanup bags. A whole roll of them. Because very often I find myself with 10 or 12 people who are all very, very unprepared. So this could work great if the kid vomits in the car, and also works great as an emergency poncho, and you can also hand these off to people and use them as a shelter if you really needed to. I got a SAM splint in here because it goes with all the medical stuff, and again, all hazards kit for the car. More contractor cleanup bags. I've got extra socks because when it gets super wet, especially if this is a multi-day adventure, you're gonna need extra socks. I've got an armor panel that I keep in here. This is a Safe Life Defense Hyperline. It weighs almost nothing. This thing weighs like a pound. A lot of armor panels are really, really heavy. In this context where we are going to be carrying a backpack that doesn't have books in it, the backpack itself does not stop bullets. Also, I am really likely to be running away from whatever I come across if I'm carrying this around. If I'm alone and I'm carrying this thing around, I'm going to be running away, and having a piece of soft armor on my back makes a lot of sense. Especially when the stuff in the backpack isn't going to stop anything. And I think we'd all agree from what we've seen inside, the stuff that I'm carrying in a bug-out bag or a get-home bag is not stopping bullets. This makes a lot of sense, especially in the direction that it's likely to be facing any type of threat that I might run across in one of these circumstances. I've got a bottle. This is for water. So on the outside of the bag, you may have noticed before, water, because that's the first thing we always end up needing in some type of emergency. This is ancillary water. This is all of the other stuff that we might need. Let me see if I can get it all out of here without breaking anything. So I've got various ways to filter water. A little straw filter. Show you this other stuff here in a second. And I've got tablets. These are our primary ways of filtering water. And then I've got the water bottle. And then I've got another water bottle that I can use once it's emptied out of the very, very clean water. In here also I have Liquid IV. You can see how old some of this stuff is because it's all worn. Liquid IV, which is like a Gatorade type of thing, sports drink stuff that you can put into your water, try to refuel some of your electrolytes. That way my feet don't cramp up as they always do because, you know, 40-year-old man. And then anybody that knows me knows I have a crippling caffeine addiction, and there's no easier way to carry caffeine around than to have things like no-dose or caffeine strips. These are Elite Ops energy strips. They taste like mint. It's like like one of those breath mint strips that you put on your tongue and they dissolve, but they have caffeine in them. So these are pretty cool. They get the job done for what I need done if I'm stuck out hiking for a couple days when I didn't know that I was going to be hiking for a couple of days. At least it'll keep my crippling caffeine addiction kind of to a low roar. Now in the middle section of the bag, I will let you know I do have tools that I keep in the car just for fixing things with the car, but there's some tools over the years that I found that when you need them and not a lot else gets it done, and also things that make you look like you're working, which could be really helpful. One thing with the really helpful variety is having a reflective vest that's marked with absolutely nothing, but has areas where you could mark it with stuff if you wanted to. It's a big slit down the back that you can put a moniker in. So this is for if you're stuck hiking down a roadway somewhere. These reflective vests. You put this on with a pair of reflective gloves and you can do work and look like you're a person that's actually trying to work. So if you need to go collect firewood off the side of the road, or you're fixing your car, or whatever else happens in your life where you have to be doing work and not paying attention to your surroundings, you want to be able to protect your hands because your hands are kind of your lifeline for getting everything done, and you're going to want to make sure you don't get run over by a car. And in the crazy, cool, tactical, cool guy scenarios that everybody talks about, you look like somebody that's working. All I need to add to this is a clipboard and a hard hat, and I look like everybody's supervisor on a job site. And then people are more likely to leave you alone. You don't look like a threat. In here I've also got black tape, just simple electrical tape. I've got more of it in the car. Black electrical tape tends to fix lots and lots and lots of problems, not just around cars, but in everyday life. Things break, and I know people like duct tape, but black electrical tape is a little more low profile. People don't notice that it's black electrical tape holding things together from 10, 15 feet away, and sometimes that's helpful. I also have a pair of channel locks, because when your normal pliers or your multi-tool can't get it to move, channel locks will get it to move. Now these aren't brand new channel locks, of course, but they will get the job done. They are sharp enough to grab a hold of something and really put some torque on it to try to get it open. These are all things that over the years I have found I needed in some sort of emergency. Now this is obviously set up for summer. It's summertime right now. In the wintertime, I add into this a hat, a fleece hat with a logo from the local SWAT team because I got it for free. In order to put in this bag, so that way I know that I always have a hat that'll keep me warm. And I also put hot hands in here at the bottom, and the hot hands have got to be one of my most used items from the back of the car. I have extra packs of hot hands and stuff like that in the wintertime, so that way if we're leaving the car and everybody's cold, nobody's dressed for the weather, because who dresses for the weather? I've got that to be able to try to keep everybody warm. At least their toes and their hands. I can try to attach it, put it on the kids on their sweatshirts, stick it on their wrists, and that kind of warms all the blood going through the body, keeps people a lot warmer than they otherwise would be. But that's the stuff that after looting and riots and floods and tornadoes hitting the town and general shenanigans that go around in the Chicagoland area that I've seen, blizzards, this is the stuff that at the end of the day I said, okay, I'm going to put this into the bag in case this happens again. If there's a flood, the hardest thing to find is clean water. Because the water comes from the ground. And if it's flooded, there is no clean water unless you make it. So I've got immediate clean water, and then I've got let's make clean water. If somebody's shot, you need the equipment to save their life immediately until you can get them to definitive care. It's not going to wait. And improvising, I have seen, hasn't worked out really well. There was a time when I said to myself, well, I'll just improvise. I can make this stuff. I've got lots of experience with scouting and backpacking and stuff like that. You can improvise lots of stuff. After seeing a couple people bleed out inside of 2 minutes, never make it to the hospital, never even make it off the scene from getting shot in the leg, I'm good with, we're going to carry actual trauma equipment. If something hit like that comes, we're going to just protect ourselves up front. It's much better to not get shot than it is to be able to have all sorts of tactical cool guy gear, and at the price of this type of thing, it's pretty cheap insurance. I'm going to need, if it's cold outside, if there's a blizzard, socks are the first thing to go. Socks are the first thing to go. Your feet get wet and you try to dry your boots out and do the best you can. You need extra pairs of socks. I've got them in the boots in the car. I've also got an extra pair of socks because in a blizzard that's terrible. And for rainstorms, contractor cleanup bags. Contractor cleanup bags. Keep a whole roll of them in your car. If you get nothing else from this video, whole roll of contractor cleanup bags. Learn how to poke holes in them and make ponchos or sleep in them or whatever else you're going to be able to do with them. But these are a lifesaver, absolute lifesaver out there. And then the rest of it is all redundancy to things that I already carry. So that's my get home bag, and I'm sure some people will be pissed off about what I carry in it. I'm open to suggestions. If there's stuff you think I'm missing that I might need, that's fine. I'd love to hear what you have to say about extra stuff, but until next week, you guys be safe. Take care of each other. That's been your free field training for today. While you're here, check out one of the other videos that we made, or down here, subscribe so you can see more. Or you could check out Patreon, where you can see how you can get your name put on the videos, like all these fine folks over here. I'll see you guys next time.